started. So welcome to the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. We are so excited to host this Iron Butterfly podcast today. The first outside the DC Beltway. Welcome to the Wild West. My name is Gretchen Bliss, and I am the Director of Cybersecurity Programs here at UCCS, and we are very honored to have this amazing panel. UCCS, just for your background, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, is a leader in the ecosystem at the local, regional, and national level, pursuing innovative and inclusive opportunities to expand diversity in cybersecurity. From Women in Cybersecurity, WISAS as we call it, our student chapter, to week-long all-Spanish cybersecurity camps. We have our UCCS Power Cybersecurity Strategy, which has the core values of diversity, excellence, and interdisciplinarity. The outcomes from that strategy are over 20 cybersecurity pathways, degrees, minor certificates, concentrations across 5 of our 6 colleges. And we have hosted over 88 events in the last year alone that touched over 10,000 people to raise the bar with cybersecurity. Also, UCCS has had a unique position in that we have 5 military bases, which many of you are probably from, in our geographic area. And over 26% of our student population are military, veterans, or military affiliated. So the panel today is particularly close to our hearts. Supporting our government agencies and executing homeland defense. Many of our students have been hired to work at NGA, NSA, and NREL. If you don't understand those, you will at the end of this. And other government contractors to include MITRE, Deloitte, Lockheed Martin, Booz Allen, BlueStack, and Northrop Grumman, just to name a few. Reflecting back on my 25 years in the intelligence community, I am so excited that the women in government today have such a vibrant and accomplished examples of success and mentorship to inspire them to new heights. I am going to introduce everyone here and take a few minutes and we'll get started with our podcast, if that's all right. So welcome again to the Iron Butterfly podcast. This episode is Iron Butterfly's first ever live podcast recording outside the DC area, titled Beyond the Beltway here. And it is hosted with us here at UCCS, but we do have other universities represented. We have a huge team of universities and community colleges across Colorado that we work together on, and we're excited to have them here with us. So we are going to delve into the intelligence community outside the DC area. Ms. Megan Jaffer and Kate Hopkins are the 2 co-founders of Iron Butterfly Media, and they will be your hosts today. I hope you all got a chance to look at the podcast. I sent it out to all our students. So 80 years ago, Eloise Page, the original Iron Butterfly, joined the Office of Strategic Services, trailblazing a path for what was ultimately became the United States intelligence community. She rose the ranks from secretary to case officer, defined the norms of her time, and eventually became the first female chief of station at the CIA. Eloise was known among her colleagues to be a fierce fighter with a core of steel, and she earned the codename Iron Butterfly. Our podcast continues her legacy, inviting the unsung heroines of the U.S. intelligence community to share their stories with aspiring leaders. So today, we're joined by 3 local intelligence community leaders. Ms. Sandra Auchter, did I say it correctly, is the Director of National Geospatial Intelligence Agency in Denver. Some of her favorite positions through her career include a Middle East analyst, Director of the Office of Eurasia and Africa, and the Deputy Associate Director of Capabilities. Can't wait to hear more about that. And then we have Ms. Jenna Seidel, and she is the Director of the National Security Agency and Central Security Service of Colorado, leading a talented workforce producing integrated intelligence critical to national missions worldwide. She started her career in the Marine Corps, transitioned to serve as an NSA civilian in 2011, and has since worked in a number of analytic operations and leadership roles. Last but not least is Ms. Rachel Leahy, and she is the Director of Advanced Programs at General Atomics Electromagnetic Systems, located just outside of Denver. Before General Atomics, she held several positions on the East Coast supporting the intelligence community in program management, operations, and analysis. So I'd like to welcome you all to UCCS, and we're very excited for your panel.
Wow, this is pretty amazing. Thank you all so very much for coming. This is a really great turnout, and we're just so thankful that you came to listen to this fabulous panel. Like Gretchen said, this is our first one outside the Beltway. For those of you that don't know what that means outside of the DC area. We've had a couple of these at local universities in DC, and we're trying to branch out, and we're just so happy that we did. So thank you, Gretchen, and thank you, Megan. So you just heard the bios of these fabulous women, but if you know anything about Iron Butterfly, you know that we like to do things a little bit different. And it's not about the fabulous careers that these women have held that many of you already know. But we really like to focus on the person and who the woman is. And so we started to do this, I think it's a fun little activity, where before the panel, we reach out to either a friend or a mentor or an old boss or colleague of each one of the panelists. And we ask them, what makes that panelist special? And it's really funny because some people get it right away. They're like, oh my goodness, of course, and they do the assignment as requested. But it's still a new concept. People want to focus on their career and their career highlights. And sometimes we have to go back and say, tell us a little bit more about the person. And so we are really excited because we got 3 from friends, mentors, and old bosses. So it's kind of cool. We did get a mix. And
they have not heard these yet.
So
this will be the first time they're hearing them as well.
Kind of poker face.
Okay, so let's start with Rachel. And Rachel, tell us who you're going to read for.
So I'm going to read for Jenna. I'm hoping this is a surprise. And I might have to ask the audience for reading this, so stand by. All right, for Jenna. Jenna leads NSA Colorado, one of the agency's most important sites, with a mission of providing warning on what is occurring throughout the world. Outside of Colorado, Jenna has served all over the world for both NSA and the U.S. Marine Corps. She is a unique leader who can raise both the morale of a unit and its effectiveness. Importantly, she is someone who built strong bonds and tremendous loyalty for those who work with and for her, always looking for the next opportunity to enhance an outcome for the mission and the team around her. And that's from General Nakasone.
Also, I'm loving the sound effects from the audience.
Don't worry, the mics are picking up. Okay, Sandra, who are you reading? Yes. Oh, okay. Trying to go ahead. Who are you reading, Sandra? Okay, great. Go for it.
Right. Sandra has this incredible gift of being unapologetically herself while inspiring everyone around her to find their own unique confidence. She's the kind of person who's always in your corner, cheering you on to be your best self, whether it's work-related or personal. What amazes me is how she balances being a respected leader with being a genuine friend. I could always go to her with anything, and her infectious laugh and adventurous spirit would lift me up. She was never an untouchable leader. She was always there for you. Even when life throws curveballs, Sandra shows us all how to take care of ourselves, find joy, and keep moving forward with grace and authenticity. Sandra doesn't just inspire you to be better, she makes you believe you already are. That's what makes her so incredible. From DNL.
Okay. I make it. Rachel. Okay. Rachel Leahy is an adventurous spirit with a deep love for the outdoors, which makes her truly special. Less than 5 years ago, she fell in love with Colorado's mountain beauty during a visit and moved to Denver within 9 months to embrace the outdoors full time. Her weekends are filled with mountain biking and trail running, often tackling the 14K challenge in the breathtaking local, state, and national parks. About 2 years ago, Rachel adopted Zoe, a rescue dog, during a visit to a shelter, and she now frequently volunteers there, giving back to the community she loves. Rachel's zest for life, curiosity, and commitment to her passions outside of work inspire those around her to explore and give more of themselves. This is Rachel's mentor show.
Feel like this is an Oprah episode. Are you giving away content? Everybody gets a No, because she always makes people cry.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Okay, well, so now that we made you cry,
Yes.
we can start having a little bit of fun. So as Megan said, we believe that Iron Butterfly resume is really only part of who you are, right? So sometimes we like to break the ice with some crazy fun questions. So today we're gonna start with the question, if you could have a superpower, what would it be and why? And Jenna, we'll start with you.
So this is a really hard one, because I feel like the outcome that I'm trying to achieve with the superpower is the same. But if I had a superpower, it would be to manufacture time. Because there's absolutely so much that I want to do, whether it's family, friends, my rescue dog, Shep, spending time with him. And there just aren't enough hours in the day to do all the things that I want to do. So be that manufacture time.
That's a
Good. Yeah.
How would you do it? Would you I don't know.
So it's sort of like, I think of like, sometimes you want to pause a little bit and just be able to savor the moment. Other times you just want to accelerate through, but I'm sort of super conscious of, the butterfly effect. And sort of changing the universe, with the superpowers. Balance.
Love it. It's like a movie plot.
Yes. Yeah.
Sandra, what about you?
So I went back and forth with this one. One was sort of like very physical and the physical prowess. So I'd want to fly, right? I'd want to be able to, especially out here with all of the mountains and everything too, be able to see it from a different viewpoint. It's also kind of connected to what we do for those of us who are imagery analysts and looking at things from a mile up. But I also would like knowledge and wisdom. I want to be having that be my superpower as well. So, because then you can compensate for not being super strong or something.
Knowledge and wisdom, like in what sense? In every sense?
So, I think it's something that I value a lot. So, my spirit animal, if I were to pick one, would be an owl. And I loved Greek mythology, and Athena was my favorite goddess, and that was like her familiar. And of all of the gods and their superpowers, she seemed to stay out of the fray because she knew, when to get involved and when not to. So I kind of
I love that.
yeah.
That is a superpower. Rachel, what about you?
This was definitely a tough one. And I certainly appreciate the idea of being able to get back time or manufacturing time and then be able to fly. And my first thought was, okay, what if I could swallow up all the water in the ocean and be able to see all of what's on the bottom? But then really, this is right. And I don't know why that came to mind. But something that is authentic but not original would be telepathy, being able to engage people and actually understand what they're really thinking, because it just might make things easier. So it's kind of a toss up between those two.
Not similar at all, but
No.
you see why we asked this question, because you get to know these three ladies and how they think in a very different way. So I loved those answers. That's fantastic. Okay. So I know you guys want to know a little bit about their work. So we are going to ask you a few questions related to their roles and where they work. So if you all could share with us a bit about how you support the IC in your current role, and what's the coolest thing about your job or organization? And Sandra, let's start.
So wow, where do we start? So if you're not familiar with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, we're an IC and DoD combat support agency, and we're responsible for providing geospatial intelligence that's timely, relevant, and accurate to the warfighter, to decision makers. Sort of that's the official kind of thing. I've been with the agency for 25 years. I've seen it evolve where it's just government, and now there's so many other commercial companies that are kind of doing the same thing. So it's been interesting to see how it's evolved. One of the things that I think is really cool about what we do is that we're not just in the national security sphere. We can also delve into sort of civil and fire rescue, disaster response has a geospatial component to it as well. I think for me, I love when we get together, we have a meeting every morning where the entire agency kind of gets together to kind of level set. And it's one of those things where if you're not, you know, you don't see it, I'm so used to it happening all the time now. And it's literally everybody from around the world kind of level setting. And I think it's something that's really special that we do. So really
Awesome. I didn't know that you guys did that. That's pretty cool.
every day.
Every day.
And it's earlier here.
Rachel.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So my role is advanced programs director for a company called General Atomics. And in this case, it's General Atomics Electromagnetics Group. So that is the R&D part of the technology corporation that makes up General Atomics. So General Atomics is generally known for our RPAs, or remotely piloted aircraft, otherwise known as unmanned aerial vehicles. So we have an airborne side of our business where we build predators as well as the payloads that are on those predators. But our company is really, again, the R&D part of the business. So as the R&D wing, we have a very robust space business. We also build advanced sensors and lasers. We have a weapons division. We have a maritime division. And then we also have I know it's very broad, very broad. And then we also have a nuclear energy division. So specifically in my role, it's supporting the space systems business, which by the way is up here in Denver, Colorado. A lot of people don't know that about us at General Atomics. And in my role, it's looking at building prototype space systems and leveraging other parts of our business to build new payloads. And so it's really wonderful to have the opportunity not only to work with a lot of different government agencies and other companies, but it's really nice to leverage technologies that are of lower maturity and help evolve them and build them into capabilities that can actually help support a mission.
I didn't know that.
Well, let's see if we can go 3 for 3.
Yeah. With pressure. No, I'm really excited to hear from you, Jenna, because I think most people know about NSA, you know, well, outside the Beltway, but you know, tell us about your role and what you guys do up here.
Absolutely. So just for those who may not be aware, the National Security Agency headquartered in Fort Meade, Maryland, we have 2 primary missions: signals intelligence and cybersecurity. So really an offense, think about it as offense and defense. Across the United States, we have 4 cryptologic centers, one in Texas, Georgia, Hawaii, and Colorado. I'm really honored to be the director of the site here in NSA, Colorado. And so as the bio said, we have a global mission. And it's really focused on technical signals intelligence. And so in that, we provide a lot of support in our combat support agency role, like NGA, to Department of Defense entities, but that are also an intelligence community organization. One of the coolest things I think about my current position, you heard at the beginning, I came to the agency through the Marine Corps. I was a benefactor as a Marine of the work that happens at NSA Colorado many years back. And so to be on this side of it and to welcome in a lot of junior military personnel, their first tour, after tech school, showing up maybe right out of college, right out of tech school, and getting to work with them and share back the experiences I had when I came to the agency many years ago. It's pretty basic.
That is awesome. And rewarding, I would think. Giving back. So awesome. Thank you all.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think, like, I would love to know for each of you personally, this could be in your current position or any position that you've had, like, what was your best day in the intelligence community? Like, do you ever remember just looking around and being like, I just can't believe that I get to do this? Rachel, do you want to start?
No, every day is a new day. It's always different. And just being able to be impactful and contributing and working together towards an end goal. When you see the accomplishment of the end goal, it's one of the most amazing experiences you can ever imagine. And so I hope for more of those.
Sandra, what about you?
I've had some great TDYs, so those temporary duty stations. Like my first, when I worked in Africa, one of the places I went to was Tanzania, and then Zanzibar, which like, you know, not a lot of people can go. I've been to Zanzibar, and they paid for it. But I think, oh, I know one. So I worked missiles for a little bit. So I got to drive a transporter erector launcher somewhere out here in the West in the desert, because of my job, which I thought was super cool. And I got to actually see a silo. We have a lot out here that y'all may not be aware of. But I got to go down into one and actually see it. And I was like, what in the world am I doing? But poli-sci degree, and I'm here driving a town, which is in the desert, which is crazy. So that was a good day. I've had lots of them, but that was definitely memorable.
What do you remember about the silo? Like, what was it like?
So I just remember that there was definitely man, but there were like 19-year-olds who were in charge. Not that, you know, you're irresponsible at 19. I'm just saying there was a lot of responsibility.
If we have any 19-year-olds in the
I know, but they had this like responsibility to, you know, to protect national security. And so looking around and hearing about what they did, and they spoke about it so matter of factly, and I'm like, what if you screwed up or whatever? But you know, obviously they get trained and everything. So that was pretty cool. And then to like, you know, drive by these areas and not know what was there, and to go behind the scenes a couple miles in from the road. Like, this is crazy that this has been here, and in the 80s they were like ready to go if something happened. So so that was pretty neat. That's cool.
You know, to go back to seeing, you know, younger folks running the silos, I got the opportunity to go on to an aircraft carrier when I used to work for the Navy League. And I left it with a newfound respect because everyone on that carrier was under the age of 22. And they were running that ship like a city, small city. And it was fascinating and amazing with billions of dollars of equipment. And so it's really cool to see.
Jenna, what about you?
So I'm like Rachel. I feel like every day is sort of like, for me, it's like a pinch me moment of I can't believe this is what I get to do. Nothing I ever imagined in my wildest dreams. But reflecting back to things you don't realize when you're in them, and being able to look back at yourself. So had the fortunate opportunity on behalf of the agency, but while still in the Marine Corps, to deploy to Afghanistan. And had this amazing, you know, was supporting an Army unit as a Marine, which was a whole, for those of you familiar with the military services, it was an interesting juxtaposition. But then in the organization had airmen, had Coast Guardsmen, and then had some of our allied partners. And so I'm just thinking back to what we were doing and how we got to do it together, and really coming together to partner, just really one of those moments that if I could go back and do it again, would just jump on that opportunity.
That's awesome. Is there like a day in particular you feel like you would relive if you could?
No, I unfortunately go to the hardest days. And so, you know, just in terms of what was happening, wouldn't want to relive those, would want for a different outcome. So.
Yeah. So a lot of people there might be some here. I know there are some here who are avid Iron Butterfly listeners. So a lot of our Iron Butterflies listeners may not know that there is an intelligence community. You all know because you are here outside of the Beltway and specifically here in Colorado. So I'm wondering if you guys could share with us what makes the IC in Colorado special. And so, Jenna, let's start with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so where Sandra and I interestingly get to work together. And so our organizations coexist with another organization in the same complex. And so I think one of the neatest things here is if we were back in DC, we would have to drive About an hour and a half, to meet with people.
Over a bridge.
Over a bridge,
Yeah.
across the Beltway, the actual Beltway. Lots of like red, traffic patterns slowing us down. But here I think it's so amazing that, from an intelligence community perspective, we get to sit right next to each other. We get to bring our folks together, to partner together, and really get to outcomes together as an intelligence community, much more rapidly in my mind, than we would if we had to drive, set up meetings, find a conference room, all of those different things that end up sometimes being barriers to collaboration.
What a selling point, I think, to coming here and working for the IC in Colorado, because that's what you want. You want an IC that's, collaborative and working together and being so close together. So that's really cool. Sandra.
I ditto everything that Jenna said, and we've been 2 years now, so we've been through some stuff. It's been interesting, but I think that the other piece too is the networking opportunities and the understanding of the ecosystems that are here. That I'm a native Washingtonian and grew up there for 20 some years, working not here, and I'm like, oh, this is a whole new world. We had just a fantastic day today, meeting new people and getting that network. But I heard that in Colorado, outside of the DMV, that's DC, Maryland, Virginia for Colorado people, is outside of the DMV, Colorado has the largest government presence between DOD and IC, but you would never know it because we don't have those kinds of connections. And so this has just been eye-opening for me to really tap into that. The academics and the industry partners as well has been really great. And it doesn't suck to drive to work and see the Front Range outside of our building. It doesn't get old. No, it's been a great learning experience, and I will take that back with me.
Rachel.
So I didn't realize that we had such a significant IC presence other than one particular area in Colorado when I was back on the East Coast. So during COVID, like a lot of us, it was, is this where I want to be? Is this what I want to do? And I have recently, right before everything got locked down, almost locked down, I had come to Colorado for a visit, similar to what you're saying, Sandra. It's like, hey, this doesn't suck. This is nice, seeing the Front Range, being in the mountains. And so I had to go figure out how to get a job out here in Colorado. And I was amazed at how many contractors were also out here. I was not aware of that at all. And obviously for me, there was a large presence in aerospace and specifically for space systems, which was new to me. And so I was very fortunate to find that General Atomics had a space business out here. But again, so there is a presence, and it's beyond just the IC and DoD. There are a lot of contractors that are producing a lot of different types of space systems. There's significantly more than just space out here, other types of sensors, optics, lasers, RF, comm, other types of capabilities, which I did not know about. So it's interesting to know how far it expands here in the Denver area and then further south.
Just to follow up on this, one thing that's really important to Cadie and I Cadie and me is that we do this podcast for many reasons, but one of the reasons we do this is to show especially young students that there are so many different types of jobs in the intelligence community. It's not just analyst, operator, or engineer. You can be anything in the IC. You could be a pipe fitter, you could be a sociologist, you could be anything. And so just to follow up on this, if you were talking to some young students, and I'm really specifically some of them that are in the audience right now, would you say the same about the IC out here? Like there are lots, it's probably a little bit more condensed, but, would you encourage them to, apply to the IC in Denver? Or not in Denver, in Colorado?
So I absolutely would, and I think it's incredible just to think about. We hear about from a generational perspective that the younger generations might not stay in a government job for 30, 35 years. They might want to do something different. One of the interesting things I think about NSA is that you could move around from job to job to job and have a new career every 2 to 3 years if you wanted to. So you can be broad, and then you can also be deep depending on your career field. And there's many different career fields. And I think there's also opportunities, whether it's our high school work study internship program or college level internships where folks can apply and come in and test it out. A little bit of a test run to see if it might be something that fits. So I think there's ways to dive in deeply and then also to scratch the surface. But I think there's lots of opportunity no matter the.
Thank you. I think it's important to be engaged and curious. And so there's a lot of different ways, as we've talked about, that you can get your foot into the IC, whether it's working for a government agency, whether it's working for a contractor, but having a feel and having an idea of, hey, this is my authentic self, this is what I'm interested in, and then just going out and applying and talking to people and saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work, okay, let's try something different. And I think sometimes we find a lot of times in the IC that people will toggle between being in the IC as an actual government employee, then being out in industry as a contractor, and then sometimes something in between. And then it's just really nice to know that you can kind of maneuver your way around and continue to learn and grow and effectively, like Jenna said, have different types of careers throughout.
Trying to figure out what else to add in there. I think the other thing that I would point out, besides all the different programs and the different things that you can do, is the level of responsibility that you have at a really, the 19-year-old in the missile silo, but even the experiences that, when I started 27 years ago, I had my account. That was my account that I was responsible for. And if something happened in my part of the world, I was the one that went to the State Department to go brief or to engage with my colleagues in the other agencies. And that's something that you really don't get in other kinds of missions and businesses. And I think it's something that's really, if you care about public service and you want to be able to make a difference fairly early in your career and have a lot of responsibility. It's not for everybody, but if that's something that you would like to do, you do have the opportunity to do that. I mean, I went from analyst one day to doing strategic comms for my director like a week later, which was crazy. I don't know what they were thinking, but you do have those opportunities to do that and to work at other agencies and to go back and forth if you want to do work industry as well. So there's so many different avenues that you can take that I think it would be great for someone just coming in and wanting to be of service.
Thank you all for that. That's great. Totally. And I think kind of similar question, like, when we hear your bios, you have these like long, kind of really esteemed careers. It's, I think, easy to forget that you all used to sit in these chairs, right? And like you were students at one point. And I'm curious if you were to kind of say something to your college age self, like what would you tell her? Sandra, do you want to start?
Oh, so different back so long ago. I would say, okay, something practical. I would take more public speaking classes. I would do that. I would take an opportunity to speak in front of an audience, and because you can use that anywhere and you will inevitably be asked, especially if you're, moving up in your career to do that. And I just didn't take enough of those opportunities because it scared me to death, frankly. So me doing this when I was 21, it just wouldn't happen. I just wouldn't do it. And I think the other thing would be to take more chances and to be, put yourself in uncomfortable situations where you're not quite sure about, how that outcome is going to be. First of all, it's going to be fine. You're going to be okay. And then you'll do your most learning in those situations where you are not comfortable. So those are the couple of things that I would do.
For someone who might be struggling with a fear of public speaking, like how did you overcome that?
Ooh. It took me a long time. So I was well into my career before I actually really kind of overcame that. And it was subsequent jobs that I had. So I'm an introvert, but I'm a learned extrovert because the jobs that I had, I couldn't afford not to talk to people and stay in my office. And so I had to kind of get out there and be present. I don't know if I had enough people, women especially, that I could look up to who I saw doing that. And nobody ever told me that it was really important. It was, just one of those things that's sort of on the job kind of training. So I think I would look for those opportunities, whether it be, I don't know, something in, your community, or it doesn't have to be at school or whatever, but just to be more comfortable, talking about yourself, which is really hard. And then about something that you love. Start with something that you love to talk about, and then just find opportunities to talk about it. Like I like talking about Beyonce, so
I love it.
I just have to throw that in there. Yeah, we can come back.
Jenna, what about you?
So I would tell anyone this, and this was me. It's okay not to know, what you want to do with your life. And if people are trying to drive you down a path, it's okay to be not okay with that path they're trying to drive you down, and find your own path. I would just encourage, if that's you, to keep doing something, keep experimenting, keep, taking chances, to Sandra's point, continue to find out, do I like that? Do I not like that? And why? And just keep moving on. As went to college for engineering and very quickly became a history major who graduated with a Bachelor of Science in History. It was all over the place. And still remain that way, which is why I need more time. And so knowing that about yourself, knowing who you are, and just charting your own course, it's okay to do that.
That's such good advice. I think that people go down that rabbit hole when they're being kind of pushed towards this direction, or even a mentor is like, I think you should do this,
Yeah.
but actually knowing yourself and saying, actually, I don't want to go this path. I want to take this one.
Yeah, one of our Iron Butterfly mentors, Sue Gordon, who is the senior most ranking woman in the intelligence community, position now held by Stacey Dixon. Her college major was zoology.
Yeah.
She literally studied the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
And she talks all the time about how that relates to her.
Yeah. And I'm gonna guess, because you mentioned Beyonce, that you would talk about Taylor Swift, because I noticed.
It's a really long story.
Okay, I won't ask, but I noticed the break was
Not a Swiftie.
Okay. I'm not either. Please don't attack us.
I'm a supporter.
I hear you.
Yes. Will there be a sing-off?
Yeah.
Also, I am a Swiftie, so I was offended by that.
Oh, sorry. I support Swiftie. I've tried, I just haven't gotten it.
I think that's where I need to go. I need to go there. I support Swifties, but.
So being a singer is an okay choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
We need people to sing the national anthem. So again, there's a position. Okay, sorry to.
No.
Rachel, go ahead.
So my degree is in finance. That is a degree that has never been used. So we talk a little bit about, following a straight path. Is there really a straight path? I mean, do we really know who we want to be when we're in college? Heck, I'm 44. I still don't know what I want to be. And, just feel really fortunate to have opportunities throughout my career, and been very uncomfortable, and just jump at the opportunity to engage, to be curious, to try new things. So, if I was to go back and look at, my former self, and very confused, still very confused, but just unsure, it's similar to what our mentors have told us. There's no right path. There's probably no wrong path. Just keep going, persevere, be gritty, be tenacious, because you're going to stumble and you're going to fall, and it's not going to be comfortable, and you're going to have to learn and grow and course correct. And who knows where that path or those paths are going to take you. I think for me, it's been about being open-minded and open to the fact that there is no preconceived path. You just forge your own, and you make it what is authentic to you and what you're passionate about. And hopefully it's in giving back to others and serving. But at the end of the day, it's whatever is best for you.
Can I just piggyback on something? You
course.
mentioned the word resilience. I think that's something else too that, practice that. I think the folks that I've seen that have been the most successful are the ones that are able to to be flexible and shift. And if something, happens where that path that they're going down and that thing that they want to do it's not quite working out, and they're able to pivot fairly easily. I don't care how brilliant you are. I don't care sort of how technically proficient you are. The folks that are resilient, that can adjust very quickly, and don't take things personally, and just, learn from mistakes, are the ones that do really well in our business.
Great advice, yeah. Thank you all, those were fantastic. So we have one more question, and then we're gonna open it up to questions, but there's a caveat. We are gonna open it up, since we are at UCCS, we're gonna open it up to students only, because we really want to give it a chance to the students to speak. So all the rest of you, I know that you're here to see these fabulous women. You can talk to them at the reception afterwards, but we really want to give a chance to the students.
So if you're a student, you can practice your public speaking.
That I was gonna say that.
Yeah, there
Come on out.
you go.
This is your opportunity.
And future jobs could be here somewhere, so raise your hand.
No pressure.
No pressure. So our last question, a lot of you who have listened to us know, which is in keeping with the name of our podcast, Iron Butterfly, that was named after Eloise Page, which was her code name. If you were to give yourself a code name, what would it be and why? And so I'm going to start with Rachel. Okay.
So the code name would be Smalls. So for those of you who have not seen The Sandlot, please go home and watch The Sandlot. You'll understand, but talking about that tenacity, that resilience, unafraid of asking questions to better understand, it can be exhausting for people. So Smalls.
And did you pick that yourself or did someone?
Somebody pick that.
I wanted to point that out because we have been told, we have done over close to 100, over 80 episodes. We're in our 7th season. And when people come on the podcast, they say this is the toughest question. And we always are like, why? And because they really get in their head. And so they often ask other people. So that's why I asked. I love it. Thanks. Okay, Sandra, do you want to go next?
Sure, although I've given this before.
Yes. No, I love that.
I was given this as well by a team that I just love when I was working in counterterrorism, and it's badassy. It's badass and classy. And we had these fantastic women that I worked with in counterterrorism. Mostly, dudes that were in there, but so the women were very close to one another, and that was something that they valued, and they provided me with that name that I've just treasured, and I treasure all of those women. I even have a mug to prove it.
It says badass on it?
It does.
Do you
Yeah.
use it on Zoom calls?
No, so she told me I'm not supposed to drink out of it. Like it's one of those, like it's decorative.
Oh.
When I
Sounds like she needs another.
We're gonna get you an Iron Butterfly one that says that.
Well, it's a whole team of us, but anyway, so I look at that mug, and if I get frustrated, about anything that's happening during the day, I know that at one point I worked with amazing people and that I did some good. So badassy.
Thank you. And just a little plug, Sandra did do an episode with us on her own. And so she was in season 6. So I would definitely go back and listen to that episode because it was really great. More on Beyonce in that. Spoiler. Okay, Jenna.
Well, to the point that this is the toughest question,
Yeah.
my answer originally was going to be it's classified. But I dug deep, and someone offered this Red Phoenix, shortened to Refo.
So red, the hair color, but Phoenix. And so I'm not into mythology and it doesn't I'm not there. I don't have a large, but, the sort of the assessment was sort of that ability. We talk a little bit about resilience, tenacity, to be able to sort of have those low moments, but then pick yourself back up, continue to plug, and then how do you grow from that? And so that was the assessment I was given. It resonated.
That's fantastic. And I can't believe out of all the people we've interviewed, no one has said it's classified before.
Classified.
That's
Love it.
hilarious. I love it.
Nice, nicely done.
So, I'd love to open it up. I'd love to have someone come up and ask a question. And to get us started, how about this? Because I know it could be scary. We are very lucky that one of our former Iron Butterfly team members is here, and she surprised us. So Liz, if you could rise and show us how it's done to ask.
Actually, sorry, Liz, to put you on the spot. You actually have to come stand right.
You have to stand on the X.
So, well,
And then hopefully this will give some of the students in the audience
a little bit of inspo.
On the X?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so hi, I'm Liz Herndon. I was an old Iron Butterfly team member. I was an intern for season, was it 4?
That sounds right.
Sounds
Yeah.
Now living in the Denver area with my husband. So my question to kick it off for all the students in the room, what's a leadership lesson you wish you learned earlier in your career that you use now?
Great question. Liz.
Thanks, Liz.
Oh, I have one that comes right to mind.
Okay, good.
You guys don't mind me, picking that up. For me, it's an easy one, and I've learned this the hard way. I'm sure most of the people, at least in the front of the audience, know this. Being a leader is about being humble and trying to be compassionate and empathetic and understand people's position. When things don't go well, get angry or upset, or at least I'm speaking for something that's close to me, there's a tendency to not stop, take a deep breath, think through how to respond. And what has helped me, instead of being reactive, which can cause problems, given that it's a very small community for many, many years, I wish, 20, 25 years ago, somebody would have said, hey, I get that there's a lot of pressure. This is hard. This is difficult. Stop, seek to understand, and seek to try to come up with resolution together. So I guess that's my recommendation for the next generations in terms of coming up is please be kind, please be nice, and please be thoughtful. Because not doing those things, even if you think at the moment that it can't be impactful later on, it can. So I wish somebody again would have told me that 20 years ago.
I'll go next. I think a lesson that I learned from very early on in my career was that I don't own anything that I'm working on, that I'm a caretaker for it. When I was told this, coming up, I was like, what does that mean? I want to have ownership because I want to do a good job. But when you think about being a caretaker versus this is mine, you're thinking about the fact that somebody's going to come after you and continue to take care of this. And so you have to nurture it. You have to make sure that you're doing the best by it. And it's not about me. It's about making sure that those that come after you are able to continue on and you leave it in the best possible, space that you could. So that was something that was good. And then the other was not to get too attached to specific outcomes, because you will envision like sort of how this is supposed to look. You're going down this particular path and you even envision, this is what that specific outcome is going to be. It never is. It always looks a little bit different, and you just need to be, open to that. And again, it's almost that caretaker thing where you're looking at this outcome is not based on your ego and all the work that you put into it and whether you're failing or succeeding. It's for folks that are coming after you. So those two things.
So I would, I think sometimes we gravitate towards, people who are like us. Maybe we share something in common, and that's sort of the gravitation. And I think, one of the most impactful things that I learned that I wish I had understood sooner was leveraging people with different skill sets, and different perspectives and different backgrounds, bringing that diversity of experience in, and being able to bounce ideas and, you know, find people who are completely different, because they are going to think about the problem differently, and probably together the outcome will be much richer. To your point, what you imagine it being, when you bring those different ideas in, just gets such a better solution most of the time.
Thank you. Great question and great answers.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, do we have any questions from the students in the audience? Anyone? No one? Okay, I'll give you 15 more seconds. You can throw out softballs. Yeah, favorite color.
I see a question. Do you want to come to?
Is that-
Yes, of course. Come on up. Love it. It's just because the mic is really good there. That's why we're making you. Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Whitney. So my first question is, I know you guys come from like different backgrounds. Currently like trying to get my master's here. But I know like with the military background, with a poli-sci degree, what steps did you take after that to get you in the position that you're in?
That's a good question. My poli-sci degree, so just will date me, but when I graduated, there was like the peace dividend, there was not a lot of hiring in the government and the IC. And my path from Georgetown was supposed to be State Department and Foreign Service Officer, all those other good things, and it didn't work out. And so I worked at a nonprofit for a few years for the Girl Scouts, which was a lot of fun. And I was just trying to figure out, you know, what it is that I wanted to do. And I literally, you know, one day said I needed to do something with my degree, and I went on USA Jobs. I don't know if I'd recommend that for everybody, but it worked, right? And I looked for something with my degree in it. I didn't know exactly what I'd be doing, so I took a huge risk in going and interviewing with this company. And it was the National Imagery and Mapping Agency at the time. But before that, I did, you know, I was developing my network and talking to people who were working at the FBI and all of these other places. I went back to school for a little bit. I temped while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I ended up just by luck with this great agency that I've been with for almost 25 years. And so I think it's sometimes it's just kind of, you can take a circuitous route while you're trying to figure it out. It's okay not to know right away once you graduate what that path is supposed to be. It didn't quite work out for me for State Department, although I think I'd be really good at that job. But I've had this great experience going down a path that I didn't quite think I would go down. So I hope that answers your question.
No, it does.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your second question?
So I'm assuming, I feel like it's safe to assume that you guys need security clearance to get in the position that you're in. And I've been told that it's by luck. Is that, would you guys agree, or is there like a certain step that
Wait, say that again?
a security clearance?
Yeah, but what was the question?
I've been told that it's like by luck, but I was saying, would
By
you
luck?
agree? Yeah, I know. So this is my question.
That's a good question. That's a good.
So would you say it's by luck, or it's actually a preparation that needs to be done before?
Good question.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say it's a pretty fact-based determination. Assuming the applicant, you know, so the one thing I would say for anyone submitting security clearance, be honest. That typically can be a pretty, that can be a derailer. And then, you know, I would just suggest not to commit any felonies in the interim. You know, right? So I mean, there's like certain things that are pretty like, that can be challenges, but I think it's, I wouldn't call it luck. I would call it, it's a pretty rigorous process. So be patient. That would be the one suggestion I would have if you're applying to one of our organizations to work at. Have a plan in the interim, and sort of be prepared for patience to be key to the application process. But I don't think it's luck at all. I think it's
Well, I think the other clarification that should be made is there's the clearance process, right? Where they're interviewing and, you know, you fill out your SF-86, which is, you know, your whole background and your work history and your schools and where you traveled and all those things. And then there is, if you're going to have to do a polygraph, right? That's a separate part. So I think that just knowing that it is a process and it takes a while, but I wonder if Rachel and Sandra had anything else to add.
I think the be honest piece, they know you're human, right? You're not gonna be completely perfect, but if you're hiding anything, that's like gonna be a red flag, and so just tell them. They'll find out and
What I love about the question though is that we actually have a lot of students come to us
Yeah.
with a lot of misconceptions about the security clearance process because they self-select out.
yeah.
Because they think they're not eligible,
Exactly.
right? So maybe they have relatives who have committed crimes. Maybe they have relatives who are undocumented, right? Maybe there's a whole host of things, right? Maybe they made a bad decision many, many years ago that they're afraid it's gonna haunt them, right? I think as long as you're honest, like you're looking for a whole person, they know you're not a robot living in the world, right? So don't self-select out.
Well, and Stephanie LaRue, who is the Chief Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Officer for the IC, she has the funniest line to this. Because a lot of students ask the question about security clearances, and what you always say it better than I do, so tell them what this is.
That's what he said. Well, she basically said, because she's Latina, she has a lot of Latina students come to her and say like, hey, I have a lot of family who's undocumented and I'm afraid that I'm not going to get into the IC. And her response is always, unless you have Fidel Castro living in your basement, like you're fine.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
for that
you.
question. Great question. So we've come to the end. Thank you all so very much. But before we get up and have the fabulous reception that Guidehouse has so lovely given us, thank you, Guidehouse. I mean, this is a difficult thing for us to do outside the Beltway because just logistically, and you know, UCCS has been so fantastic. So we have to thank Gretchen first and foremost. In the microphone somewhere. So Mary,
Quality control.
control. Adam has been so. If I was going into war, I'd want to go into war with him. The dean for the business school. What is his last name? Dean Eicher. We have to give a shout out to Dean Eicher, and he knows why. So when he's listening, so thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Rachel. This was fantastic. I hope you all enjoyed, and thanks for coming out.